Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're counting down our picks for Blue Peter moments that Father Time has not been kind to looking back.
Can you?
Yes, I'll just stand back a little bit. Oh, yeah.
Number 10. Been to the year 2000.
And you can take a look into the future right now.
For many 20th century children, Y2K and years thereafter represented the future, with its flying cars and robot butlers. Blue Peter dared to present a few authoritative glimpses of 21st century life. A 1974 write-in competition showed kids' futuristic ideas had some scary premonitions. Flat-screen TVs with international communication capability, holographic windows, and voice-activated locks mean some children are now kicking themselves for not researching patents.
It's a new flat-screen television set that can be viewed from two sides at once by the two people, and you can probably see there that they're wearing earplugs so they don't disturb anybody else.
Then again, the international European currency and weather-changing cloud-blowing machine are best left in hindsight. Before you reach for the tinfoil hats, Blue Peter's 1988 predictions of 2020, whilst correctly predicting wireless charging and wearable tech, also left those excited for the laser food processor, holographic encyclopedias, and disco-dancing legs exoskeleton disappointed. Where's our levitating room, Mark?
Levitate!
Number 9. Sending home the bacon.
But there was also some sad news. You'll no doubt have heard that Richard is no longer on the programme.
The presenting team of Blue Peter has obviously and naturally changed over its near 7 decades run. Sadly, only one host holds the infamous distinction of being sacked, Richard Bacon. Yes, as the news reported, Bacon was indeed fired for substance abuse, but not, as tabloids claimed, for using the Blue Peter tortoise to take it. The UK populace quickly forgave him when the apologetic presenter returned to screens, but how the workplace handled it wasn't as graceful. For reasons unknown, then CBBC head of programming, Louise Hegacy, addressed the nation, apologising, then completely denouncing Bacon, and aired it moments before the show.
One of the Sunday newspapers reported that Richard Bacon, a Blue Peter presenter, had taken an illegal drug.
Still, at least his colleagues were more understanding, and vindication came when Bacon's Blue Peter badge was returned to his chest in 2018.
Well, he gave them Coke.
I didn't give any tortoises Coke, right?
Number 8. No longer smiling.
And more exciting!
Speaking of the iconic Blue Peter badge, it was mightily powerful for children who had won or earned one. Having the little crest on you still guarantees free entry into various British attractions, and arguably more popular Merlin entertainment venues, until 2017 that was, when Merlin controversially rescinded the free access to Legoland, Thorpe Park, and Alton Towers.
The ride is so new, it's not yet open to the public, so my fellow passengers are crash test dummies.
Why so? Hadn't Blue Peter provided such good publicity for them? Even airing segments of presenters getting behind Merlin's exciting new ride, due to open in 2013.
It says there has been an incident on the Smiler this afternoon involving 2 carriages coming together on a low section of the track.
The Smiler incident permanently tarnished Alton Towers' reputation and revenue, as the public rightly sympathised with the victims. Today, Blue Peter's Smiler segment serves as bittersweet reasoning for why the badge won't work at Alton Towers. Number 7. Taking the lion for walkies. In 1969, presenter Valerie Singleton decided to take the cat out for a walk. Some people do walk feline pets, especially as some are bigger than dogs. But Valentine wasn't just a big cat, but a very big cat. Literally a lion.
Come on, Valentine. Off we go.
And Val walked Val through the streets of London. In a moment that presenters would absolutely not get clearance for today, Singleton took the apex predator from Chessington Zoo to the shops. And although Valentine was a cub, he was still, well, a lion, and particularly frightening when he stopped behaving.
I want to get down, Val. Not to do that. Val, behave yourself. You're supposed to be well trained.
You'll often hear people bemoan modern health and safety standards as going a bit too far, but when you do, just point them in the direction of this segment.
No fighting.
Number 6. Bloody Biddy Baxter.
But down at the end of the line is the most important person. This is Biddy Baxter.
From 1962 until 1988, Joan Maureen Biddy Baxter commanded Blue Peter as a producer and editor. Even post-retirement, Baxter held influence as a go-to for advice. Despite not creating the show, it was Baxter that made it what it is, creating the Blue Peter badge, the write-in system, and putting together the weekly content.
Biddy, after so long, what's it like to sit up here in front of the cameras? It's terrifying.
She chose the presenters and what they do, sometimes regardless of risk, but the Queen of Blue Peter gained a reputation for ruling with an iron fist. Presenters of old have lamented how, despite having a career because of her, she was hard on her employees. Yvette Fielding is a prime example, as the then 18-year-old fresh-faced host considered leaving over Baxter's bullying. Instead, Biddy handed in her notice.
What about the worst moment ever?
That's a good one.
Number 5. Sundon sacking.
Hello there.
How are you?
Pleased to
Nice
meet
to see
you.
you.
What an amazing place this.
Baxter's style potentially played a part in Michael Sundon's time as presenter being so short-term. With 77 episodes, the world champion trampolinist turned actor, dancer and presenter's tenure lasted from 1984 to 1985. Young and energetic, Sundon was gay, and during the 1980s, this made for a scandal to the homophobic tabloids. Instead of standing by him, Baxter didn't renew his contract, claiming reasons of complaints over Sundon's effeminacy and lack of rapport with the target audience. The press continued to hound him until he died, aged 28, in 1989, apparently of AIDS-related illness.
Michael Sundon, who presented Blue Peter 5 years ago, tragically died at the very young age of 28.
The show paid tribute, but Baxter never escaped the questions of whether it was the audience response or her own prejudices behind her decision, even suggesting he was difficult to work with. Number 4. Good intentions in Biafra. Appeals aren't exclusive to Blue Peter, but theirs are well known.
There's been a war going on in West Africa for 2 years now. It's a civil war between the Biafrans and the Nigerians.
They're also innocent in why this particular moment, an appeal for Biafra and Nigeria's child victims, hasn't aged well. At the time, Blue Peter were focused on helping the many children who'd been photographed in states of famine and destitution, victims of the Nigerian Civil War. Their appeal asked for donations of wool and cotton that Blue Peter could use to buy a hospital truck.
Well, have a look around, see if you can find anything at all that you think would help us to buy our hospital truck, and send it off in a parcel to this address.
But the response was so overwhelming, 3 were purchased instead. Sadly, it would emerge years later that as Blue Peter were impartially providing help, the British government was supplying Nigeria with military aid, the very weapons that created the Biafran victims in the first place. And, of course, it was to protect the oil. Number 3. Toasting marshmallows and Girl Guides. We don't see much of them now, but before the age of social media, children would gather in Girl Guide or Boy Scout groups. They're arguably old hat, but whilst modern kids head to TikTok to express their creativity, generations past would work towards textile badges, which showcased proficiency in different skills. Part of that tradition was going on camping retreats, sitting around a fire singing songs. Blue Peter tried to celebrate this tradition by holding their own campfire in a studio, and nearly ended up incinerating the visiting Girl Guides instead. There's lots to be learned from this history lesson. Traditional social groups, traditional songs, why having an open fire in a TV studio is traditionally not a good idea.
Thanks very much again, girls.
Number 2. A monster in the studio. Many moments in Blue Peter history have aged badly because our perceptions change over time, but there are moments which we look back on differently, not because we changed, but because they did.
The Rolf Harris thing was very confusing and shocking.
For children seeing Rolf Harris on Blue Peter, there was nothing unusual. He'd often appear, demonstrating his artistry, and be interviewed by the presenters, but looking back would now betray a different feeling. We know he was a predator, whose crimes were caught by Operation U-Tree. His hidden actions on set, which Yvette Fielding described years later, are heinous now and were then.
Hang on a minute. Other people in the industry must have known what he was like, and you left me alone in the studio with him.
And we can't watch back now, partly because it's impossible to, without considering what he was up to, even on camera, and partly as the BBC have binned footage of him.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 1. Anita who?
I believe you started back in Hollywood somewhere.
If Blue Peter was a person, it would be at the age of retirement. At nearly 70 years old, it's seen a lot of attitudes evolve, and we shouldn't really judge the past based on the values we have now. But a failure to acknowledge change could be worse. Anita West went, for decades, unknown as one of Blue Peter's first presenters. Her time on the show was only a few months before she felt her position was untenable and walked.
Not a lot of people remember me, I don't think.
What controversy had she committed that was so wrong? Well, brace yourselves, she got divorced. To be fair, West never actually told producers why she left until later, but Blue Peter didn't explain why her time as a presenter wasn't recognised until 1998 either.
I don't have any regrets in retrospect, although professionally, obviously, I do, if I'm honest with myself, but from a private point of view, I don't.
Is there a children's TV moment of hindsight that you think doesn't look good despite nostalgia's rose-tinted lens? Let us know in the comments.